Welcome everyone to the August meeting of the Warren County Board of Supervisors. Please rise while Supervisor Ben Driscoll leads us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The clerk will read the roll.
Mr. Leggett?
Here.
Mr. Diamond?
Here.
Mr. McDevitt?
Here.
Ms. Bramer?
Here.
Mr. Loeb?
Yes. Here.
Mr. Driscoll?
Here.
Mrs. Frazier?
Here.
Mr. Simpson?
Here.
Ms. Hogan?
Here.
Mr. Dickinson?
Here now.
Mr. Merlino? Mr. Stroud?
Here.
Mr. Weil?
Here.
Mr. Beatty?
Here.
Mr. McGowan?
Here.
Mr. Sokol?
Here.
Mr. Thomas?
Here.
Ms. Hyde?
Here.
Mr. Garrity? Chairman Conover?
Here. You should all have received the board minutes of our July 19 meeting. The chair will entertain a motion regarding the minutes. Ms. Bramer on the approval, Mr. Dickinson on the second. Discussion? There being none, we're ready for the question. All those in favor of approving the minutes of July 19 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We will, without objection, we will move the presentation of the Employee of the Month to the County Administrator's report. He's on the phone presently with state officials and will be with us shortly. We'll move to the Chairman's report. I have really a very brief report for this month. On July 22nd, I attended the Support Services, Environmental Concerns, and Real Property Committee meetings. On July 23rd, I attended the County Facilities, Public Works Committee meetings. And I also met, after those meetings in the afternoon, I believe I met with the County Administrator regarding the Capital Facilities Program, which is being developed by the County Administrator, and hopefully he'll have some updates on that during his report. But broadly speaking, I'm very pleased with what I'm seeing relative to capital facilities inventory. The towns are participating actively and updating their information, and those that haven't, I'm sure you will. I see this as more of an evolving process, so we will, I'm sure, keep you posted, and you'll be hearing a lot more about that going forward. On July 29th, I attended the Environmental Growth and Development Committee meeting, Health and Human Services, and Criminal Justice and Public Safety. On July 31st, I attended the Glens Falls Mass Transit meeting in their offices in Queensbury, and on August 1st, I attended the Personnel and Higher Education Committee meeting, as well as the Finance Committee meeting. That was on August 1st. And that concludes my report. Reports by committee chairman, Mr. Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No report for county committees, but I'd like to inform people that the Quality Senior Care Coalition, of which Supervisors Frazier and Hogan and I serve, as well as Tammy DiLorenzo. It's chaired by Janelle Jones from Health Services and Dee Parks from Office for the Aging. Met earlier this week, and that was a committee that was in response to Supervisor Loeb and some other supervisors who had some concerns about the issues at some of our senior facilities in the area. So we're meeting every 3 months, and very productive meeting. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Frazier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Health, Human, and Social Services met on July 29th. We heard from the Office of Community Services. We heard from Director of Employment and Training, Social Service and Public Health, and as a result of that, we have resolutions 341 through 348. One deals with authorizing the chairman of the board to send a letter to Congressman Stefanik opposing the changes in the SNAP program. There were concerns there. 342 is authorizing execution of the New York State Local Workforce Development Area Infrastructure Funding. 343 deals with appointing members of the Saratoga, Warren, Washington County Workforce Development Board. 344 was rejecting all bid proposals in regards to the transportation for preschool. 345 was awarding a bid. They had to send it out again, and so that again, that would be awarded. They have heard back from only one again, and they're almost set, but there's still room for negotiation, I think, on one of those areas. 346, authorizing agreement with Amy Catalafamo, Sensory TOT Spot Occupational Therapy to provide committee on preschool special education services. 347, amending agreement with Field Goods to purchase and distribute fresh produce to the WIC participants. And 348, approving Warren County Health Services Agency evaluation of services and the annual report. So I'd appreciate your support on that. And just don't forget that this afternoon at 12:30 at Crandall Park is the picnic for the youth who took part in that summer youth program. So if any of you then have the invitation, so and if you could find a few minutes, I think you'd see that it's really a nice little affair. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Public Works met on July 23rd. Now at that meeting, we have two resolutions, 349, which is authorizing renewal of the agreements with the City of Glens Falls and South Warren Snowmobile Club for the use of the trails owned by the City of Glens Falls. And 350 is renewal of the snowmobile trail license agreement with Lime Adirondack Timberlands for snowmobile trail system located in the town of Hayes. That's it. That's all I have.
Thank you. Supervisor Hogan.
I wasn't ready.
I thought I'd tell you all.
Very good.
Thank you. Cornell Cooperative Extension continues to be doing great work throughout the county. The annual youth fair happened last weekend. It was fantastic. Kids brought projects that they worked on all year long. They displayed them. They were judged. Many of those are going on to represent Warren County at the state fair, as well as some of the county kids. That's a great opportunity to showcase Warren County and CTE and 4-H. But mostly I want to focus on the golf tournament. August 24th, Cronin, beautiful venue. Hope to see you all there. And anyone else. It's for a good cause, and it's a great time. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Dickinson.
I just would like to report that we're in our budget season. We've had several meetings in the OCTAX committee concerning our budget. We've met with the coalition for the Cool Center. They've made a request of OCTAX. They're looking to develop a capital improvement budget. So we're seriously looking at that, and we also have met with the CVB, Lake George Regional Chamber. They had a very impressive year last year or this year, and are looking forward to improving on that next year. It's a pretty serious request, and we're taking it seriously, and we're looking at our budget. So if any of you supervisors other than Wild Mike have any questions about what we're doing in OCTAX, I'd be glad to answer them.
Thank you. Supervisor Strauss.
Thank you. There was no Legislative and Rules Committee meeting this past month. However, there will be one September 5th, and we will carry on the conversation that we've had in the past on the distribution of sales tax revenues. Another committee that Chairman Conover had placed me on was the Balloon Festival Committee, and my first thought was I need one more thing to do. However, I am thankful that you did appoint me to that, because I've never worked with 12 or so greater people led by Mark Donahue, many of whom are balloonists, and they work very, very hard to make this balloon event happen, and they get paid absolutely nothing for it. And I never realized all the little details that go into what makes this event happen. And these people do make this event happen. And this year in particular, it's going to be very difficult because the FAA has new rules for balloonists. They're much more stringent. The paperwork is more involved. Nobody's happy about that, but it's a result of a balloon accident that occurred in Texas. And I also want to think that I've kind of became the liaison between the Balloon Festival folks, and they're organizing that event, and what county needs. So I want to, thank Kevin Hayjos, and I want to thank the Warren County Sheriff's Department in helping me to help the Balloon Festival Committee people to make this event this year an even better and smoother event. We're working particularly on the traffic flow this year too. So again, I kind of regretted it at first, but now I thank you for appointing me to this committee and working with these fine folks.
Thank you, John, and we certainly appreciate your efforts. I've been following your communications and your suggestions with the county sheriff and others, and Commissioner Hayjos, and they're all good suggestions, and I think they will lead to a better, smoother event. Supervisor Wild.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'd like to appreciate the call-out from Supervisor Dickinson. I'm always interested in OCTAC. But there's just one thing that I'd like to mention and point out to the board. This morning and yesterday afternoon, I attended a public gathering. Supervisor McDevitt arranged it with some of the residents in Queensbury, in Glens Falls, that were concerned about issues with the bike trail and Stewart's development. And although I said nothing, I do want to call out and give a shout out to Kevin Hayjos. He represented the county. He did a great job, and we're lucky to have him. And that's all I have to report. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Beatty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Facilities met on July 23rd. There's only one resolution in front of you. It's fairly self-explanatory. Resolution 328 just needs a signature from Mr. Chairman himself. We did get a short update from Don DeGraw on how we're getting additional revenue at the airport this year through the new contract that we changed. We signed with the FBO. I think that's a real positive. And I've asked Don, I meet with Don every 2 or 3 weeks, along with Mr. Hayjos, to update the committee every month on the revenue portion of how we're increasing revenue and decreasing the county's reliance on having to cough up the money to fund the airport. So that's getting better all the time. And that's a real positive for all the taxpayers of Warren County, that we're spending less, but we have a great airport out there. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Thank you. Supervisor McGowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do not have a committee report. Thank you.
Supervisor Sokol.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Finance met on August 1st, and before you are resolutions 326, 327, and 360 through 369. Nothing earth-shattering this past month. Most resolutions revolved around closing of capital projects or amending the county budget to reflect revenues to various accounts. But I will touch briefly on 362, and that is the resolution that writes off uncollected Medicaid receivables carried over from the former West Nile Health Facility. And unfortunately, it is a large amount. At the time, we were in the middle of selling the facility. We did lose a lot of key employees who would have taken on that task to get most of those receivables. So in business, unfortunately, there are things that you do have to write off, and this one we do have to do. Also, on the 1st, I did have the privilege and honor to go to the luncheon with the legislators, and I got the chance to sit next to Supervisor Driscoll, and Dr. Seeley was there. But one of the questions that I did ask was regarding broadband, and I passed on some information to Supervisor Hogan. I had the Senator Little and Congresswoman Stefanik did reply, and also I met Supervisor O'Brien from the town of Hampton, and he gave us some much needed information, so hopefully something will come of that. And last but not least, it is somebody's birthday today. Amanda, happy birthday. That is it, Mike.
Thank you, Supervisor. Happy birthday, Amanda. Supervisor Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have a report. However, the budget process is about to commence with the department heads, and I look forward to it. Thank you.
I think we all do, and it was nice to see the recent numbers on sales tax as well.
Yes,
See,
rebounded.
I was a little concerned there. We'll have to see how it is going forward, but okay to this point. Supervisor Hyde.
No report.
Supervisor Lega.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Criminal Justice and Public Safety met on July 29th. Before you, there are 8 resolutions, number 329 through 336. 3 are for agreements or contracts. 2 are from the signed counsel. 1 is from Office of Emergency Services. 3 are for out-of-state travel. 1 for building codes, 1 for probation, 1 for public defender. 1 resolution is for a grant submission, and 1 is for amended fee schedule for fire prevention and building codes. I'd also like to note that in the amended budget, you'll see $51,710 by the assigned counsel from Legal Aid Society for an oils contract, and also a budget amendment by the Sheriff's Office for Hadley Luzerne Schools resource officers. At our meeting, we also had an update by the Director of Probation, Robert Uzzi, on bail reform, discovery reform. This is a big thing that's coming up and will affect our budgets and operations of several of our departments here. And our director is on the NISAC task force for the new criminal justice reform, so we will be kept up to speed on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Diamond.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No reports.
Supervisor McDivitt.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Just 2 quick things. I did attend a presentation at Crandall Library this week in a presentation relative to the new developments on South Street. I don't know if anyone has recently gone by the corner of Glen and South Street, but that corner is looking very, very special, and as in the last major puzzle in this whole component of job creation and just a good looking city is South Street. And Planning Director Bruno attended the meeting, President Duffy, Claudia, myself, and I may very well be missing someone, but it was a good presentation. Also like to thank Kevin regarding the Stewards Project. There are some very good, dedicated people that have lived on the bike trail for many years that expressed some concerns, and I want to thank Kevin and give him a shout out for being very thorough and at least we're really trying hard to get people to believe in government, that we at Warren County are trying to do the right thing. So Kevin, again, thank you, and Supervisor Wild, thank you for your attendance also. So that being said, I turn it over to Claudia.
Thank you. Supervisor Bramer.
Thank you very much. Environmental Concerns and Real Property met on July 22nd, and we have 4 resolutions for you today. One is the Open Fee-Based Financing Program. The second one is establishing the Climate Smart Task Force, and I understand that Supervisor Beatty would like to be added to that, so I would support an amendment to that resolution at the appropriate time.
We could entertain that now. What number is that resolution?
That is on 338.
338. There were presently you and Mr. McDivitt were on that.
Supervisor Hogan is as well.
Supervisor Hogan, Supervisor Beatty would like to be on the committee. Would you like to?
I'll second that.
We have a second from Mr. McGowan on the second. Any further discussion? There being none, all in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you. There you go, Supervisor Beatty.
Thank you, Ms. Bramer.
The next one is amending our terms and conditions for the foreclosure sale. And we went over that quite a lot, and we did pass it at the last committee meeting. I know that Supervisor Loeb has an amendment to that one as well. So I don't know if you want to do that one now. It's a little bit more technical.
Let's wait till we have Mr. Loeb's report.
Yep. And then the last one for this month is appointing our real property director, Lexi Delory. And she's been doing an awesome job, particularly with the foreclosure sales and getting as many people out of the foreclosure as possible, along with our treasurer. So I would ask for your support for that resolution 340. We did, speaking of the foreclosure, we did have our last chance meeting this past Monday, and there were only 3 individuals. If you remember from prior years, it could be a lot of people and really a lot of time and people's personal information being conveyed. So I'm happy that we've been able to streamline that process and really help people up front so that they're not ending up at the last chance meeting. So I thank Lexi for that, as well as Treasurer Swan for your work. And we have our next committee meeting on Monday, so look forward to that. And one of the things that we will be talking about is the Clean Lakes collaboration that Supervisor Simpson brought to us. And I was able to reach out to the Chautauqua County Legislature contact person about that, so I think we should be able to move forward with an action on Monday, which will help us with our HABs program as well as our septic, I think. So thank you. That's my
Thank
report.
you. Supervisor Loeb.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Support Services met in July. There are 4 resolutions in the packet coming out of that meeting. They are self-explanatory, but I would like to point out, emphasize 2 of them. The first being Board of Elections, the electronic poll books. Everybody in Warren County and surrounding counties are going to be using electronic poll books. On one hand, it's not a big deal. On the other hand, there's a change, and any change can be disconcerting to the voters. So, supervisors in your towns, if you could pass that along to your folks. Anything to prepare people so that their voting exercise will be more comfortable and productive for them. The other point I wanted to mention was our dear late Judge Austin, in his will, has donated to the county his writings for Warren County historical writings and genealogy writings. And it's being donated to the county. It's going to be located in the area of the Warren County Clerk, and it's going to be a real plus to our archives. So that's fantastic. With regard to Supervisor Raymer's comment about the what? Terms and conditions. I'll pass it back to Supervisor Bramer. She had spoken with the county attorney, and it was just a matter of referencing the pile of rubble that was on Ridge Road for so many years when the service station burnt down, and there was a lot of debate. In the terms and conditions, we now have, you can bring the existing buildings up to code so they receive a certificate of occupancy, or demolish the building, but we don't mention anything about what happens after you demolish the building. You can demolish the building and leave a pile of rubble for 10 years, or leave the asbestos there. So I passed on to Supervisor Bramer as chairman to perhaps consider amending our terms and conditions, so I'll give it back to Supervisor Bramer, please.
Without objection, Supervisor Bramer.
Thank you. Yes, I would just propose an amendment to that provision where it says demolish such buildings to say something like demolish and remove the demolished rubble of such building.
Do we need more wordsmithing than that?
We can do that. County attorney suggested demolition shall include removal of all demolished material.
Yeah, something to that effect. Thank you. That'd be my motion to amend.
That's the motion. You've heard the motion. Is there a second to the motion? Mr. McGowan on the second to the motion. And the motion is to amend to make it clear that the debris is to be removed within a reasonable period of time. Mr. McDivitt?
What do you do if you have a new property owner that basically says, not going to pick it up?
He's asking a question of enforceability.
Well, the enforcement mechanism here is for the county to take the property back.
Okay.
Depending on what the mess is, I don't know if we would want to take it back.
No, but I kind of think that was, to a certain extent, the circumstance there. But whatever. I think the language is important.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you've heard the motion. There's a second to the motion. Are we ready for the question? All those in favor of the amendment signify...
Go ahead.
Am I hearing someone? Mr. Lowe?
Jumped the gun. Sorry about that.
Yeah. No? All right. All those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The amendment's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Loeb. Report of the County Administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Apologies for going out of order today on the Employee of the Month. I was on the phone with the State Budget Division regarding reimbursement for one of our programs. So for this month's Employee of the Month, one of the things that we sometimes can take for granted as employees is the physical environment that we work in. But having clean offices and nice carpets and paint jobs and good windows to let the sun in can sometimes be just as important as having a good boss to motivate the employees. Our Buildings and Grounds crew does an excellent job at this. I've gotten to know some of them after hours, and they're all hard workers, and they all deserve our thanks. But as anybody who works here or any member of the public who comes here knows, we have one of the most beautiful outdoor campuses of any county seat in the state of New York, and our August Employee of the Month has a lot to do with that. I'd like to invite DPW Superintendent Kevin Hajos to come forward and introduce her.
Well, as Ryan just said, if most of you don't know, this is Brenda Asline. She does work for my Buildings and Grounds Department. And I know most of you know her because you see the work that she does outside the facility. Anybody who comes to this facility sees the planting, the flowers. I mean, Brenda is nothing but on the ground. In fact, sometimes she's probably harassing Frank and I, saying she needs more flowers or she needs more plant work or having topsoil. What you don't see with Brenda, though, is some of the other things that she does in house. As Ryan said, the painting. A couple years ago, we had a gentleman by the name of Larry who did all the painting within the county. Brenda, when Larry left the county and resigned or retired, Brenda took that over. So if you go in offices and you don't necessarily recognize their music, she does it all. The nurses' cars that are on the back parking lot every year, she uses the first one here in the morning to clear all that snow off so they can get to her cars as well. So Brenda's been an employee with us for September, will be 14 years. She started off as a cleaner in here, and then she became what we refer to as an MEO wife, because she was out on the highway, and she probably that for 3 years. And then since then, she's been in Buildings and Grounds, and she is what makes her place so good. Brenda, thank you.
Well, I can say that I've enjoyed doing my job here. I really like what I do, and I try to make it have a little bit of my own personal touch. Maybe I go a little bit too far when I add it. But it is a poem. Pretty close. So I'm glad you all appreciate what we do and what I do and everybody else that helps me. Thank you.
Okay, I have two employee milestones to announce this morning. Both have 20 years of service. Elizabeth Burke from Social Services, congratulations to Elizabeth. And a person I've gotten to know since my first month on the job here who does terrific work, Lisa Grant from Tourism. Lisa, we're lucky to have you, and thanks to both Elizabeth and Lisa for your dedicated service. We have two revisions to resolutions today. Resolution 352 from Support Services is a compliance matter regarding Supervisor Thomas's term on the Soil and Water District, and it needed a technical correction. Resolution 355 from Personnel, that's the monthly compensation schedule amendment. We needed to add an item decreasing the salary for the first assistant county attorney by $200. This change is in line with the salary grid that we use to guide the county in assigning attorney salaries, and the decrease is from the one-year step to the entry-level step. And this is Amy Levine's old position. Finally, there's a proposed floor resolution today to authorize a Westmount settlement. The county attorney will address this resolution in her report. And I'd like to thank Attorney Tom Clements and County Treasurer Mike Swan for their work in negotiating this settlement, which is a pretty good deal for the county. Since the July board meeting on Wednesday, July 24th, Supervisor Thomas and I held the annual budget kickoff meeting with department heads. Although times are good, we stress the need to put together responsible budgets, as we always do, and I have full faith in our departments to do that. On Monday the 29th, we held our first mediation session with the Police Supervisors Benevolent Association, which represents the sheriff's lieutenants. The mediation lasted almost all day, and we got closer to a contract. I'm optimistic that we can reach a deal at the next mediation session, which would mean that we can avoid interest arbitration. Our lieutenants are good men, they work hard, and they have the best interest of our county in mind. On Friday, August 2nd, I met with the Washington County Administrator and did the same on Wednesday the 7th with Saratoga County. This is something we want to continue doing, so we're looking at problems and opportunities on a regional basis and figuring out how we can help each other. The past 2 weeks, I've been working closely with Amy Clute on insurance matters, first to get the RFP out for brokers and carriers for the 2020 property and casualty programs. And second, we had our annual meeting with NYMER to assess the county's risk management program. Overall, we're getting great scores. We have a bit more work to do in the Charles R. Wood Park, but it's nothing serious, and our DPW team has gotten praise for the work that they've done there to date. So in the theme of today, I'll thank Kevin Hajos for that. Additionally, NYMER reported to me that the situation at the Warren Street facility that D&G is leasing has greatly improved from this time last year, so that's also good news. On Tuesday, we held our second negotiating session with United Rail. Like the first one, it was a positive discussion. We got closer on a deal, but there's still distance between us, and bridging that gap is going to require further discussion and direction from the Board of Supervisors, as well as United Rail's corporate leadership. I'll update the Public Works Committee next Tuesday on that. In addition, at the Public Works meeting, Supervisor Simpson mentioned the Swede Fire Tower. I just want to say the county approached Lime with this project. Lime has been a very good partner as far as I'm concerned, and anybody that's worked with them on putting together the proposal. They don't have to do this. It's not the easiest thing in the world for them to do. They have administrative costs. That includes when they harvest, they do timber harvest on these parcels. They have to alter the management schedule to accommodate trail usage when they do that. They'll also have people wandering off the trail and hikers that will inevitably go up the tower during the fall foliage season, even though it's hunting season. These are some of the things that Lime will just have to deal with, which are realities. In addition, they have other parties to consider, including the Nature Conservancy, which holds the easement on the property, and they also have hunting and fishing clubs that pay for the acreage. So that is some of what was behind their price structure of $3,000 a month. That said, in the spirit of moving forward and continuing to be good partners, Lime is willing to come down a little bit from that price. So we'll have that discussion at the Public Works meeting and see what the committee thinks is an appropriate price. We can go back to Lime and see if we can get that done. I wanted to touch on the subject of SUNY Adirondack today because it's been a topic of my work over the past month in several different contexts. As you know, SUNY came up during the most recent Budget Committee meeting as to how Warren County can be a better partner in their operations and in the development of their campus, which we own with Washington County. This was one of the topics in my meeting with the Washington County Administrator. He now has additional revenue that's earmarked for the college because they got a mortgage tax enacted. The college was also a major focus of conversation at the last 2030 task force meeting, which Supervisor Beatty is chairing. And I have to say it was an excellent meeting. That group is off to a really good start. We ended up having like a 2-hour meeting, even though we're trying to be respectful of people's time. The conversation was just really terrific. The task force, as part of that conversation, spent a lot of time discussing the role that the college can play in getting young people to move here and to stay here. And the college is also one of the participants in the county's capital project inventory that I'm going to speak to in a moment. They've submitted over $25 million worth of projects. One theme that emerged in all of these conversations is that SUNY Adirondack is a very important asset to this community, and it needs more attention. If you look all across upstate New York, with what little success there has been in economic development, you look to places like Buffalo and Albany, what they're doing is anchored in the SUNY system. The SUNY is a great resource to this state. I think that we also have an opportunity here in Warren County to improve coordination between SUNY and not just the county, but all the players that are engaged in local economic development. We should be attracting new students. and building a homegrown workforce that's in sync with quality jobs and quality industries that we want to encourage to come here. Those new jobs are really the key to this county's future and to this county growing, and we can't grow this college into the asset that it could be if we don't invest in it. The athletic facilities are a perfect example, a perfect illustration of this issue. They've been neglected for years, they're in bad shape, and we lose students to other colleges because of them, including kids who are born and raised here. Now, every local dollar that we invest in something like the athletic facilities or really in any capital investment in their campus, it's a guaranteed match dollar for dollar with the state of New York. I think about that. I see a surefire way to get a state investment into this county in a way that improves our assets and grows our economy. And not taking advantage of that, I think, is a missed opportunity. It's something that I'm going to continue looking at more deeply, see what we can do going forward. And that's a segue into the last item I wanted to update you on, which is the capital project inventory. Our planning department and my office have been working on this since the springtime, and we've had a great response from all the towns, the city of Glens Falls, the village of Lake George, SUNY, as well as the Civic Center, the Cool Arena. But we don't have a final product to present just yet. We have to polish it up. But right now, we've got over $215 million worth of projects that are in this inventory. And keep in mind, this is only a first cut. There are more projects out there that haven't yet been accounted for. There are some projects on this list that have a $0 figure because the feasibility studies haven't been done, and the people didn't want to hazard a guess as to how much these programs would ultimately cost. And I also want to emphasize that this is not a wish list of nice-to-have items. Only about $18 million, for example, of this $215 million is earmarked for parks and bikes and pedestrian amenities. We're talking more than $92 million for sewer and water and stormwater infrastructure, which is critically important. And many millions of that are directly related to environmental remediation issues that we must deal with. There's $62 million for facilities that need to be improved or repaired or replaced. There's $60 million for aging transportation infrastructure. And we also asked everybody who submitted projects to classify whether they were high, medium, or low priority. Not everybody has completed that task, but of those who have, we have more than $50 million worth, which is more than 25% of these projects, are self-classified as high priority. County and municipal staff are going to continue working on this inventory with the idea of improving capital planning in Warren County. The vast majority of the localities in New York State have not historically been good at long-term planning for infrastructure, and we want to be different here because we want to grow and thrive. In closing, I wanted to mention an editorial that the Post-Star wrote in May. It struck a chord with me. It was about climate change, and I'm not here to weigh in on that, but it did make some points regarding infrastructure planning that were very well said, and local governments like ours would be wise to consider. Here's just a couple of passages from that editorial. Water is overrunning our roads all over, and we lack the resources to make the fixes that are needed. In many places, road culverts are too narrow to handle the volume of water during the spring melt and increasingly heavy rains. The municipal sewage systems regularly overflow into local waterways during storms. Our infrastructure is inadequate because of our inattention over the years and unwillingness to spend money except in a disaster. Budgeting by crisis means that we end up spending more over time because the damages from extreme events are worse when we haven't prepared for them. It also means that instead of being able to spread out the cost, we face the need for huge investments all at once. But we rarely see a community undertake a comprehensive infrastructure overhaul. There's a reluctance to put time and money into efforts that aren't necessarily right this minute, and we need really a region-wide emphasis all around this country on infrastructure repair and replacement. And I'd just like to conclude by saying that in a fiscally conservative county like ours, that provides quality services and takes pride in keeping people safe and that wants to grow, these themes fit very well into our philosophy, I think. And I look forward to continuing this capital planning effort. Thanks to all who've worked really hard on this, and we'll keep going. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Very good. Report of the county attorney.
Good morning. As you can see in your resolution packets, there's a proposed floor resolution regarding Warren County versus Bernard King. As we discussed 2 months ago, Tom Clements, representing the county, won a judgment against the Bernard King estate in surrogates court. Right after this trial, the estate filed a notice of appeal, which triggered a civil appeals settlement conference. This past Tuesday, I believe, August 13th, Tom Clements and Mike Swan attended this conference. The county was initially owed $111,929 from the estate. Mike and Tom negotiated a settlement of $185,000. Out of this settlement, the county will keep about $133,000. That's just an estimate. It's going to be 133 something. The balance of this will go to Tom for his contingency fee. The $133,000 will go to the Westmount Reserve to pay legacy costs and will offset a portion of the amount we're asking the board to write off today in Resolution 362. If any member of the board would like to discuss the details, we're prepared to do an executive session. Finally, I would like to let the board know that my first assistant county attorney, Robert Terwilliger, started this past Monday. We're excited to have him, and I do want you to know he will be covering committee meetings for me next week, so I'm hoping everyone has a chance to welcome him to the county.
Thank you. Reading of communications.
Capital District Regional Off-Track Betting Corp. Financial Report dated May 31, 2019. Letters of resignation from Timothy Costello and Brad McGowan resigning from the Warren County Soil and Water Conservation District Board of Directors. Letters from the Brant Lake Camp and Point of Pines Camp for Girls commending and supporting efforts by the Warren County to reopen hiking access to Swede Mountain and its fire tower. Letter from Howard Dennison, Chairman of the Southern Adirondack Realtors Government Affairs Committee, expressing concerns regarding Warren County's collection and enforcement of occupancy tax. Letter from Mary Cassane, Warren County Attorney, confirming Assistant County Attorney order of succession for her office. Robert Terwilliger shall serve as First Assistant County Attorney, and Ryan Dickey shall serve as Second Assistant County Attorney. We received a check in the amount of $3,728 for a June 2019 payment from Capital District Regional Off-Track Betting Corp., and we received Washington County Board of Supervisors Resolution Number 147 of 2019 adopting Adirondack Community College budget, and 164 of 2019 appointing member to the Warren Washington County IDA and CDC.
Thank you. Reading of resolution.
Proposed resolution numbers 326 through 369 were distributed to the members of Board of Supervisors and posted to the Warren County website on August 7th. Proposed resolutions numbers 352 and 355 were amended after mailing. Those are the two that Mr. Moore covered in his report. A motion is needed to approve the amendments to resolution numbers 352 and 355 as provided.
Mr. Dickinson on the motion, Mr. McGowan on the second. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
There's also the floor resolution in your packets. That's the resolution that Ms. Cassane just went over. The motion is needed to bring that to the floor.
Mr. Simpson on the motion, Mr. Driscoll on the second. All those in favor of the motions to bring it to the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Proposed floor resolution number 1 will now be resolution number 370.
Very good. Is there anyone in the public wishing to address the board regarding any of the resolutions presently before us? There being no one, I'll open the discussion up on resolutions to supervisors. Supervisor Strauss?
Yes, I would like a roll call on 369, and the reason is that I've been appointed to that board, and that I want to maintain my independency with a recuse vote.
Roll call on 369. Are there other roll call requests? Supervisor Thomas.
Yes, I'd like to request a roll call on Resolution 331 and also Resolution 351.
331.
Right.
And 351?
Correct.
Very good.
And I'd like to discuss 331
We'll be right back to you. Let me finish roll calls. Mr. Simpson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Thomas covered it.
Okay, very good. Any other requests for roll call? Supervisor Sokol.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We are sending a letter to Mr. Lewis, the Lewis family, for their continuing support with the Up Yonder. But 354, can we do the same, send a letter to the Judge Austin family?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Consider it done. Fine, then we'll open discussion on 331. Supervisor Thomas.
Yeah, this is the resolution increasing the building permit fees, and frankly, I'm rather opposed to this. As a contractor in my past, I guess maybe that plays into it. But the increase from 15 cents a square foot to 25 cents a square foot is a 67% increase. This is the one activity, construction, that increases our assessed value in our towns and for the county, which spreads out the tax burden across, makes it easier for everybody to pay their taxes. Trying to balance the county budget on fees, a $479,000 budget is rather ridiculous in my opinion. The sheriff's budget is $24 million. We don't charge a fee when someone calls a sheriff deputy to their house because they got an issue with their neighbor or something like that. So maybe we should start. I don't know. And then there's the clamor for affordable housing programs, and fees are an ever increasing or are part of that ever increasing cost of building materials, ever and more demanding codes and changes that we have very little input on, the ever-increasing cost of labor, and altogether this leaves more and more people out in the cold, outside, especially the lower-income people. So I would propose that we reduce it from 15 cents to 10 cents and eliminate about half the other fees on the sheet. If economic development is what's desired, and it is, and for some of our towns, construction is the only economic development, and we seem to be determined to make it more and more difficult. My comment.
Thank you. Supervisor Simpson.
Mr. Chairman, I want to agree with everything that Supervisor Thomas said, and also point out the fact that there wasn't any discussion about reducing the cost. We automatically moved right to increasing the fees that are already being borne by the taxpayers on the property tax side of the budget. So it was, in essence, another hidden tax on top of a tax that's already being collected and being paid twice by the taxpayer. And for all the reasons that Supervisor Thomas that he spoke about, I support. I just don't understand how this is. I spoke to the department, and this would increase their revenue by approximately $26,000. And I don't think we'd be getting the best bang out of our buck by raising these fees to make up $26,000. Thank you.
Supervisor Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the committee, I had made my opinion on this particular issue. My brother is also a building contractor, and we spoke recently about this resolution. Mr. Moore spoke just a few minutes ago about planning for the future, and I'd like to see this particular resolution come back to committee and look at a long-term plan as far as not hitting taxpayers with a large percentage, a 67% increase. Maybe we could take a look at gradual increases, annual increases, or every other year looking to do that at a more reasonable progression.
Is that a motion to table, Mr. Driscoll, and send it back to committee?
I would like to make that motion to
Is
table
there,
and bring it back to
is there a
committee.
second to that? Mr. Beatty on the second. Motion to table takes precedence. Discussion ends. All those in favor of tabling 331, signify by saying, and sending it back to committees, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
One opposed? Any other opposed? Two opposed? Mr. Strau on the opposition, Ms. Bramer on the opposition. The motion to table and send it back to committee succeeds. Discussion on other resolutions. Ms. Bramer?
Yes, thank you. Just a second. Wasn't ready to discuss, but looks like no one else is on anything. 341, we are authorizing a letter to Congresswoman Stefanik opposing changes to the SNAP program, and I would ask that we also send that letter to our state senators that represent us in Congress, our state senators. Schumer and Gillibrand, to be specific. Thank you. And with respect to 362, this is the write-off. I'm curious as to how many residents that dollar figure represented.
All right, let's deal with 341. The amendment is to include our state representatives and U.S. senators. Did you say, Ms. Bramer?
I'm sorry, I meant just our U.S. our Congress, our U.S. Congress members, Schumer and Gillibrand.
Okay, so to include sending that to our United States senators, that's being advanced as an amendment to the piece of legislation. Is there a second to that? Mr. Driscoll on the second. All those in favor of that amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. You can continue, Ms. Bramer.
Thank you. On 362, it is a large dollar figure that we are writing off, and I'm wondering how many residents at the facility that represents.
35 is sticking out in my mind. Tammy, do you recall?
It's higher. I can get you the number.
Is it higher?
Yeah, it'll be. What ballpark? Is it over 100?
I would say it's over 100.
Okay.
Because what we're talking about is we're talking about dollar amounts that over time could have accumulated. It's not like we're talking about only December 2015 bills. We're talking about over time. This is what was sitting there when the White House.
I don't know where I got 35. Sorry.
Anyone else wishing to discuss resolution? Supervisor Loeb?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wondered what Supervisor Thomas was inquiring about with Resolution 351?
351?
351, did I hear that?
Yep. Correct.
Roll call request.
There was a roll call request on 351. 351 deals with the poll books. Mr. Thomas, you may respond or not.
Sure, I will. My concern is that while it's probably more efficient and it's more useful for the new laws that have been put in place, I'm very concerned about it becoming hacked. Because once you put everybody's information on them e-books, connect it to the internet, which is what's going to happen, I think they're going to end up getting hacked. And we got enough problems with our elections now. We don't need to put our rolls on the internet. Well, that's my issue.
Any further discussion on 351? Mr. Lowe?
I may be wrong, but I don't think it's going on the internet. It's
Well,
self-contained.
I got a request from the Board of Elections to give them the town's passwords for our internet network. So I'm thinking that's where this is going.
Further discussion on 351? Ms. Hogan?
I'd like to have this conversation with Beth and Bill in the room, but I'm quite positive we covered that.
We did.
We did.
And that we were assured that it was protected.
Well, Yeah, you can say the same thing about the, all the banks that have been hacked and Equifax and everybody else. They were all protected too, and they still got hacked. You know, and millions of people's information got let loose. So, you know, I think it's the same thing. And I think it's a slippery slope, and it's the wrong way to go. So, we're not going to change it as a county board, but I can voice my opposition.
Supervisor Wild?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am on that committee. I have spent some time with the leaders of the Board of Election. I feel pretty comfortable. One of the reasons is that it's an approved piece of software from New York State. The state is also very concerned about making sure that there's integrity in our elections. And our own IT director, Mike Colvin's involved also to support that. So I feel pretty comfortable that we have the right people to ensure that we do the best we can.
Ms. Bramer?
I guess I'm thinking too, it's our voter rolls, which are already public documents. You could get them off the internet now, or go to the Board of Elections. I'm not that concerned about the voter rolls themselves. Thank you.
Return to Ms. Hogan.
We're emailing the rolls all the time. I mean, if anything, you know, that's out there. You know, we get those by email all the time. I think that the benefits far outweigh the concerns that may have been already addressed in New York State.
Supervisor Thomas?
But with all due respect, I don't think it's about emailing the rolls. I think it's about changing the rolls, you know, and altering the rolls so that people can vote, you know, several times. Not for what that don't go on now, but, you know, I mean, it can become more easily done, in my opinion.
Supervisor McGowan?
Yes, thank you. I was at the meeting along with our chairman, and that question was brought up on security. And basically, the understanding is that we have these modified iPads that are directly linked to the one server. For security purposes, it all comes back to the one server, you know, so it could be linked via modem, but it's over the internet. But it all comes back, so really the main server back here at the Board of Elections, and that's what I was concerned about with the information. But we were assured that this is, you know, once again, one of the more secured connections as this fraudulent stuff comes on. You know, locks on houses are meant to keep people out. You know, it keeps the honest people out. If someone wants to get into a house, they're going to get into a house. So, and I'm not saying that this loosely, but this is a little bit harder than getting into a house. So from the information that I've gotten from the meetings that we've had and going and viewing the poll books and that across the parking lot here, I feel pretty secure that we can move forward with this.
Further discussion on 351? There being none, I'll close discussion on 351. Discussion on other resolutions. And I'll close discussion on remaining resolutions. Very good. Vote on resolutions.
Resolution 326, making supplemental appropriations. Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Straugh?
Yes.
Mr. Weil?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde? Yes. Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Loeb?
Yes.
Chairman Conover?
Yes.
Resolution 327, amending Warren County budget for 2019. Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Straugh?
Yes.
Mr. Weil?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Loeb?
Yes.
Chairman Conover?
Yes.
Resolution 351, authorizing agreement with 10X Software Solutions. Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan? Yes. Mr. Dickinson?
What number are you?
351.
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
No.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
No.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Loeb?
Yes.
Chairman Conover?
Yes.
Resolution 355, amending table of organization and Warren County salary and compensation plan. Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Loeb?
Yes.
Chairman Conover?
Yes.
Resolution 360, authorizing county treasurer to close capital projects. Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Loeb?
Yes.
Chairman Conover?
Yes.
Resolution 361, authorizing appropriation of funds from the general fund, unappropriated surplus to the buildings budget. Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Loeb?
Yes.
Chairman Conover?
Yes.
Resolution 362, authorizing county treasurer to write off uncollected Medicaid receivables. Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Loeb?
Yes.
Chairman Conover?
Yes.
Resolution 363, establishing repair reserve fund A899 for railroad repairs. Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Loeb?
Yes.
Chairman Conover?
Yes.
Resolution 364, authorizing appropriation of funds from Railroad Repairs Reserve to County Railroad Repairs Reserve Fund. Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Loeb?
Yes.
Chairman Conover?
Yes.
Resolution 365, authorizing appropriation of funds from county railroad repairs to the railroad budget. Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Loeb?
Yes.
Chairman Conover?
Yes.
Resolution 366, increasing capital project H341 flood mitigation grant. Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Loeb?
Yes.
Chairman Conover?
Yes.
Resolution 367, increasing capital project H380, promoting the First Wilderness. Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Loeb?
Yes.
Chairman Conover?
Yes.
Resolution 368, authorizing county treasurer to close capital projects.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer? Yes. Mr. Loeb?
Yes.
Chairman Conover?
Yes.
Resolution 369, approving Lake Champlain, Lake George Regional Planning Board 2020 budget. Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Ms. Hogan?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Recuse.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol? Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Hyde?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer? Yes. Mr. Loeb?
Yes.
Chairman Conover?
Yes. Chair, entertain a motion on the balance. Mr. Dickinson to approve, the second, Ms. Bramer. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Now I'll open the privilege of the floor up to any, Brian?
Just a clarification from Tammy, 109. 109 is the number from West Mount.
Very good. And now I'll open it up to anyone in the audience wishing to address the Board of Supervisors at this time. Yes, sir. Could you state your name and address, please?
Good morning. My name is Stan Sanfrano, and I'm the Warren County historian. Many of you I know through my office. Several of you are new faces to me. But I'm here on 2 points today. One is your county historian. Some of you I need to meet you and you need to meet me. But also as I'm serving as co-president of the Warren County Historical Society. So I'm here in that capacity to let you know what's happening with your support at the Warren County Historical Society across the Northway in the former nurses' residence at Westmount. I'd like to introduce the executive director of the society, and while she's speaking to you for a few minutes, I'm going to pass out something for you. Terry Podnorski is our executive director, and she's been driving us through for the past 2 years the opportunity to have a museum here in Warren County that represents Warren County. So I'll turn it over to her and pass these out. Terry?
Good morning. Thank you, Chairman Conover and supervisors. I'm very delighted to be here this morning to do 2 things. First of all, to thank you for your confidence in us and support of us, and to announce our very happy news that the Warren County Historical Society has opened a museum and a permanent display. The invitations that you're receiving right now from Stan are to invite you to our opening reception and debut, which is Thursday evening, September 12th from 5 to 8 at our headquarters at 50 Gurney Lane. And we have a very exciting evening planned. Really hope that you can join us. If you're not able to come on that night, we would be happy to host you any other time that you would like to come and see the wonderful exhibit that we've created with your help. 2 years ago, we moved into 50 Gurney Lane from a smaller historical society on Sunnyside Road, and it was your confidence in us at that time to take possession of this wonderful old home and turn it into a destination venue here in Warren County for residents and visitors alike to come and learn about our history and our heritage. And we took that charge very seriously. We're a small historical society. We're just 22 years old, having been chartered in 1997. But when you gave us this wonderful opportunity to make our headquarters at Gurney Lane, we went to work with a will, and we have developed a permanent display and museum, which is called Warren County 360, Celebrating Place and People. And we chose as our model or paradigm cultural geography. And we set about to research and to write an exhibit that would tell the story of the evolution of Warren County through the lens of cultural geography, meaning that we focused on the importance of our natural resources and our geography and how it is that we developed not only our economy, but our culture and society. So we have something really brand new and innovative to offer you. Our exhibit is filled with beautiful, professionally designed narrative displays. We've taken many of our wonderful items and artifacts from our collections out, and we are able to exhibit these now. We'll have a beautiful slideshow of historical images of Warren County. And I'm sure that all of you will be really amazed at what we've created. This was a big leap for us, and we could not have done it without your support. So we're here to say thank you. And we know you have many choices when it comes to the things that you invest in, and we are sincerely happy that you invested in us. We do hope that you can join us on September 12th and come and see what we've built. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to address the board from the audience? There being no one, announcements. Supervisor Loeb.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In response to Supervisor Thomas's concern about the e-books, I take your inquiry and concern very seriously. I have reached out and asked Commissioners McLaughlin and Vanessa to address that in detail on Monday at our Support Services Committee. Thank you for pointing that out.
Very good. Thank you, Chairman Loeb. Anyone else? Supervisor Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make the board aware of a court decision that has a significant impact on all of us that have state lands or are reliant on the activities on state lands. The appellate division, there was a court decision that was handed down. I'm not sure if you've read it, but it effectively has changed the definition of what a tree is or the interpretation of what a tree is. And it's pretty complicated, but the DEC has taken the position that they can't cut any trees. So that means that any of the hiking trails that are being proposed, any of the trail overuse or trail use issues that are in Keene happening throughout the high peaks is on hold right now. All of the improvements they were going to do, parking lots. And this week, or last week actually, maybe I think it was last week, the DEC issued a statement that they are going to appeal the decision, which this will take some time. But I just wanted to let you know that Article 14, the balance that was promised in the Adirondack Park is in jeopardy with this type of issue being debated at this point.
Thank you. Supervisor Bramer.
Supervisor Simpson knows I am one of the attorneys for the group that brought this Article 14 lawsuit, so I just want to respond quickly because I think one thing that he said I do agree with is that DEC has taken the position that this is a really broad-reaching decision, and they have decided, they've told local government that they're not doing anything, they're not going to cut any trees, they're not going to take any actions that going forward, which is really, I think, unfortunate because that is not what the decision says. The decision is in accordance with long-standing case precedent and the Constitution itself, which was put into place in 1894, that said the forest preserve, meaning state land in the Adirondack Park, is supposed to be kept forever wild, and no trees, timber, are supposed to be cut. So that's from the very beginning. People were not supposed to be cutting trees in the forest preserve. There was case law over time that said you could cut a reasonable amount of trees. The case was brought because DEC cut 25,000 trees as part of its construction project in the Adirondack Park, and the appellate division said that was too many. Okay? It doesn't say you can't cut any trees, it just says you can't cut 25,000 trees. So I think that DEC is overreacting a little bit, and it's causing local government to overreact as well. So I think that people should remain calm, and yes, the state did appeal, so we'll be going up to the Court of Appeals, and we can see where we'll go from there.
Supervisor Merlino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On a comment that the administrator made back about the insurance, I had a note here. I wanted to express my gratitude to Amy Clute for the work that she's done on that insurance. Any of us that have town budgets know how much money this lady has saved us in workman's comps. She's run a great program of training our DPW crews, our buildings and grounds crews, and people around the county. I, for one, when I got mine a couple of weeks ago, 5 years ago, I was paying $50,000 from the town of Lake Luzerne towards the fund. This year, it's down 20 grand. Big savings for us. So, you know, I'd like to even say that maybe if we don't give department heads an employee of the month, this lady really needs it. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Beatty.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple comments. Following up with Mr. Moore mentioning the 2030 task force, which is obviously committed to trying to reverse the trend of lost population in Warren County. The committee is earmarked to only meet for an hour and 15 minutes, and we had to shut it off at 2 hours, and they could have gone for another 5 hours. The interaction of experts from the healthcare, from education, and from the business community was overwhelming to me. I mean, these people are committed to trying to reverse a trend that's very difficult in its concept, but I think we're going to end up with a fine product, and I think we'll have some real positives come out of this. So after only 2 meetings, it is further along than I ever anticipated. And we have people showing up now. Somebody from Luzerne came and said, you know, they say broadband is fixed and we all have access. She goes, well, I can tell you we don't. I live in Luzerne, and she went on and said how they tell me I have it, but I can't. I can't even get on the internet and so forth. And she talked about the children and not having access to even going on the internet for homework assignments. So that type of interaction already is such a positive. I just wanted to comment and thank Mr. Moore. He's been instrumental in helping coordinate this task force. And then finally, I'd like to thank everybody for unanimously voting for me to be on the Climate Smart Committee. I appreciate that. I hope to add as much as I can where I can to that. So thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Supervisor Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of quick items. Friday, September 6th is the annual Tri-County Interagency Community Resource Day at Aviation Mall. Last year, over 50 not-for-profits and for-profits that provide quality of life programs and services took part in that program at Aviation Mall. This year's program, again, Friday, September 6th, from 2 to 5 p.m., and I would encourage and invite individuals to stop by and learn a little bit more about what's available in the community. This coming Tuesday night, part of my tour of the county, I will be presenting on staff and federal feeding programs in the town of Stony Creek. That will conclude every municipality in Warren County that I have presented on that subject, but also, more importantly, equally important to me is I want to thank all of the supervisors for being gracious and introducing me to their town board members. I hang around for the meeting so I can learn a little bit more about individual town government. And again, I thank everyone for inviting me to their town. Thanks.
You're welcome. Anyone else have announcements? Motion to adjourn. Mr. Dickinson, Mr. Sokol on the second. All those in favor? Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.